I'm going to talk today about the positive aspects of storytelling in campaigning for animal rights. So I'll go to the first slide. I'm a fanatic about horses and have been for many years, and so I've got lots of stories to tell, but I'm going to pick on one particular story in this very, very, very brief lecture. But I'll come to that as I progress through the talk. One of the key things about animal rights campaigning, and I've been an animal rights campaigner for half my life, and I'm very old now, and what I've found is that you've got to present an argument, both scientifically, good data, but also you've got to be able to tell a story as well. You've got to put a narrative to that. And that can be difficult, but in all aspects of animal rights campaigning, one of the key things is, before you even start storytelling, is understanding the industry that you're working against and the industry that you want to get rid of or improve or whatever for the animals who are stuck within that industry. And that is about understanding that industry both economically, where it stands economically, where it stands politically, the regulation that's involved in those animal industries, how that industry stands within the culture of our society, and how that industry stands on a global scale. And once we've understood that, we can then start talking about the animals themselves. So we build up a narrative for the animals. And I've been doing this for many years, as I say, and I started out in the 1980s campaigning for single species animals such as chickens, rabbits in intensive farming, ducks and horses, obviously. But also in the 1990s, I started campaigning against climate change, long before it was the in vogue thing. And I worked with renowned meteorologist Bill Giles, who some of you may remember, who was the leading meteorologist in the country, and with Dr. Mike Stroud, who went to the Antarctic and did a bit of work there for climate change, on climate change. This is back in the 1990s when we were talking about just 1 degree only, and now we're talking about 3 degrees. And a lot of time's passed since then, and not a lot of action has happened. But we used to go around, we'd go to the Royal Geographical Society in London, and we talk to the academics there, and we go to Manchester University just down the road and talk to the life science students who are going into various areas of science. And we give them all the data about climate change, and we'd tell them all the facts and what's going to be happening in the future. But the thing that hit most with the people who were listening was actually the stories that Bill and Mike told. So Bill would say about, what a cyclone does to people who live in Bangladesh when it comes off the Indian Ocean. Or he would talk about the great storm of '87 that ripped across Britain at that time, and he failed to see it coming as the senior meteorologist. So, those were good stories. Those stuck with people. And Mike would talk about emperor penguins on the Ross ice sheet out in Antarctica, which we now is in those penguins are in sharp decline, and the Ross ice sheet is breaking up. But it was the stories that they told about those penguins and those catastrophic storms that made an impact on people. And I've sort of focused that, bringing this bang up to date, sort of focused on that approach to one aspect of our work. And for example, there was the Cheltenham Festival a couple of weeks ago, and with that, I did an interview on LBC radio, and 6:30 in the morning. They always want to hear from animal rights people at like 6:30 in the morning, some ridiculous time. So anyway, I did this interview, and later in the afternoon of that day, they got in touch and said, "Do you want to do an opinion piece for LBC radio on their news feature on the website?" So I says, "Yeah, when do you want it by?" They said, 9 in the morning. Okay. Oh, how many words? 400 words. All right. By night. Okay. Drop everything else. Do this opinion piece. So I thought, what the heck am I going to write about? I'll write 2 opinion pieces. One, I shall write about the facts about horse racing. How many horses are killed? What kills them? Why do they die? What's the industry doing about it? Where can we take this? Where's it going? And the other one, I wrote a story about a horse who was killed at the Cheltenham Festival, a horse called Shaboom. I won't go into this now because I haven't got the time, but it's a very, very sad story about how this horse died as a result of racing at Cheltenham. I thought I'll let them choose which one they want to put on the news. And it'll be somewhere buried in the website, no doubt. And I sent it in, I didn't hear anything from them, but later on that day I went on the LBC News website, and there was Mr. Putin at the top on the main news story, and there was Mr. Trump below him on a news story. And I thought I was going to have to go through all different aspects of their website to find myself, but there below Trump was my opinion article. And it was the story that they chose, the story about the horse. That's what hit them. That was the power. It wasn't about 221 horses dying on a race course. That's just a figure that you can't relate to. It was about an individual animal. One of billions of animals around the world who don't have their stories told, but this horse did. But we're not alone in our storytelling. The animal industry, who we're campaigning against, they have their own narrative. They have their own stories, and they're very defensive. They are secretive, they're defensive, they don't want interference from outside. But what they can't tell you is the truth. And we can tell the truth. We've got facts. They've got fiction. They don't want to tell the truth. So let's have a look. We've got the Grand National next week, just down the road in Liverpool, Aintree. And their story is, be part of sport's greatest story. You know, what does that actually mean? It's very subjective. It's very, what is it? What is the meaning of that? The sport's greatest story. And let's read a bit more. You know, the Randox Grand National Festival is far more than just the world's greatest steeplechase. They don't mention about killing horses, of course. It's an experience of epic proportions. Epic, a little word with a big meaning. Epic. This thing is epic. You've got to be part of it. Forget the horses. It's about the human, you know, what you get from it as a human, not what the horses get from it. So they promote this story, and they've actually, and I've noticed over campaigning for decades on the horse industry, they've always been on the back foot. So when we've put an argument forward, they would have to respond to that. But they're getting smart. They're getting smart, and so they're now trying to get on the front foot by talking about their story that they want the public to hear. So they'll promote their story. And then somebody may ask, oh, well, what's that story about? You know, what's the story about? But what about the welfare of horses? You know, surely you know, as a race girl, I might be concerned about a horse that's fallen over. Well, we've got the answer, they say. Thoroughbreds deserve thorough care. Wow. Whoops. Thoroughbreds deserve thorough care. Okay. That's their answer. What does that mean? Very ambiguous, isn't it? But find out more. Let's find out more. Let's have a look. Oh, welcome to Horse PWR. What does it mean? It means purpose, welfare, and responsibility. And this is a major campaign being pushed by the racing industry. At Animal Aid, we decided to do a spoof on that and call it Welcome to Horse Paw Welfare Reform. But anyway, they're promoting this thing. It's on the TV, it's on the radio, every interview they're saying, well, we care about horses, look at our PWR website, it's got everything on there. And it's got this slick marketing, it's got this great picture of this fantastic picture of this horse there. Looks really good and healthy and fit. Well, certainly to the untrained eye probably, you know, the average member of the public. I mean, if they put a racing whip in that picture, you know, it'd be a bit alarming, wouldn't it? You know, would that be welfare? Maybe. Whew, yeah. But what have we got? We've got a bit there in a horse's mouth. One of these. This is a loose ring snaffle. And I've written a scientific paper on the whip, but this is far more dangerous to a horse. This is what has controlled horses for 5,000 years. That forces them into battle, forces them to jump fences on the Grand National Racecourse. It's this that does it, the bit. And amazingly, they've left a bit in the horse's mouth. because the public are not aware of that. It's very easy to relate to the whip because it's very visible, and you can see the action that's taken against the horse when you use a whip, that violent action. But you can't see the bit being used itself. And that's only half the bridle. Had a horse had a head collar or a halter on for leading a horse or guiding a horse, no, but that's a bridle. That's about riding a horse for your benefit, not the horse's benefit. And they've only put half a bridle on, they haven't got the reins or the saddle. It's a bit like putting a picture of a car and just showing the engine, missing the seats and the steering wheel. So, but they think it looks good. So, and then we move on. We've got deeper into their website, we've got the facts they want to tell us. We've got racehorse breeding. Far more horses are bred than will ever race, but they won't tell us that. Thoroughbreds deserve thorough care, of course. Risk in racing. Look at that picture. Risk in racing, a woman with her arm round that horse's neck showing care and loving, isn't it? But the reality is, they didn't put a picture up there of a horse who'd fell at a Grand National fence, smashed his face against the ground, and it had fractured into 100 pieces. They wouldn't put that on there. So they're deluding people into believing that what they're doing is correct, that they've got control, they've got responsibility, they've got welfare under control. Absolute crap. Life after racing. Maybe we should put a line through that and call it death after racing, because very few horses live a full, long life. Most will die prematurely, long before they've lived out a natural life. And then we've got Racing's Horse Welfare Board. Well, the Horse Welfare Board was formed back in 2019 after Animal Aid had campaigned for an independent welfare body outside of racing to take over the welfare aspects of racing. It was a sort of stepping stone to our ultimate aim to get racing banned. But it was debated in Parliament. We got 105,000 votes, 105,000 signatures from members of the public calling for this independent horse welfare board to be formed. And Fiona there worked very hard. Put your hand up, please, Fee. And Jessamy here, put your hand up, Jessamy. You worked very hard on that as well to get an independent regulator. Two of my colleagues done a massive amount of work on this. And we sort of got a halfway house. They sort of said to the politicians, the racing industry said to the politicians, oh, well, we'll form our own horse welfare board, a dedicated board to look after the welfare of horses. We'll have an independent chairman who's not really that independent. Anyway, I better move on. How long have I got? Oh, good. So I'll just go back to this. So let's stay on this. We're talking about the Horse Welfare Board. So let's look at the picture they've used. And again, to general members of the public, it just looks like a horse with a bridle on. But that, to me, is the most abhorrent thing you could ever see. What's on that horse's head is an absolute load of crap. I hate to say that, use that word, but it is. We've got a bit of a dead animal on there, a bit of a sheepskin. You can see the white sheepskin over the nose. That's to stop a horse from putting his head up. Because when he puts his head up, his binocular vision you can't see where he's going. So it keeps the horse's head down, keeps the horse under control. I'll get up here because it's a bit easier. It's got a cross nose band. This is what we call a cross nose band here and here, and this goes over. And that stops the horse from opening his mouth to avoid this thing in his mouth, the bit. That's actually a spoon bit used in harness racing, but it's used on that horse for some reason. Normally have these in. And when they put these in a horse's mouth, the horse tries to get his tongue over the top. A lot of the times they will actually tie a horse's tongue down. So a lot of things going on there, a lot of cruelty going on. And the round bit there is a dexter ring bit, and that is the most painful bit a horse could ever be put in a horse's mouth, and a means of control. So there's some leaflets there, Cap for Victory. I was at this goes back to 2009, but it's still current because it could use any horse. But this horse I had a bit of a relationship with. Back in 2009, I saw this horse up for sale at Doncaster Bloodstock Sales, and he came out at the sale ring and he looked at me. got his ears pricked and his eyes focused forward, and I snapped that shot. He was brought up as a foal in the USA. He's born in the USA, in bluegrass country at a place called Gainsborough Farms in Versailles in Kentucky. And he lived an ideal life, maybe, what we might call an ideal life for a horse, for a year or so. Then after a year, he came over to Britain to start his racing career. And he was owned by Sheikh Maktoum Al Maktoum, one of the richest people in the world. And so he went to Michael Stout, the guy with the golden touch, as a racehorse trainer. You may remember, anybody remember Shergar? The ill-fated Shergar, yeah? Michael Stout trained Shergar, so he went to the top trainer. But when a horse goes into training, the life changes. They're not sentient beings anymore. They're numbers and figures. Numbers and figures, that's what a horse's life becomes. So this is his racing life, and this is his life in maths. He starts his first race out, July the 3rd, 2003, comes second of 7, and he's beaten by this much. So Michael Stout will think, the trainer will, and the owner will think, that's not bad, first race, second beaten this much. Comes out again, less than a month later, he runs third in a big race at York, beaten this much. Still very good, because this horse, Rule of Law, was going to be one of the best of his generations. He was going to run second in the Derby and win the St. Leger. He was skyrocketing to racehorse stardom. So if Cap for Victory can finish this far behind, then it's all good. Anyway, he never won a race. He got sold on to another trainer, and as you can see, he came 9 of 9, 13 of 13, 12 of 12, 10 of 15. Sold again. Went to another guy, 7th of 12, 12 of 13, terrible form. Nobody wants a racehorse like that. And he ran on the 21st of January 2009. On the 28th of January, exactly a week later, he was up at the sales, and that's where I took the photograph. And he went round the sale ring, and we'll go on to this. He went round the sale ring, and I recorded this on the Animal Aid website. He was lot 230. And the bidding started at 10,000 guineas. No takers. 9,000 guineas, which is just over £9,000. No takers. 8,000, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, 1,000 quid. He'll give 1,000 quid for this race. No, he'll give 500. 500, you can't buy a kid's pony for 500. Nobody. So he came out of the sale ring, and I thought, this horse is going to be vulnerable. But I'd already got 2 horses at home, so I couldn't take him. And I wasn't prepared to, I couldn't just take a horse straight from the sales. But I thought, well, I'll keep my eye on this lad and see what happens. So I thought he would go back to his trainer. So I rang Alan Swinbank, the trainer, got his number, and I just rang him up. And I says, hey, Mr. Swinbank, that horse of yours, Cap for Victory, who didn't sell at Donny Sales, do you want to give him a home? Because I'll take him. Because I had a word with my wife and we decided to take him. And he says, oh no, I've given him away free to a trainer called Wolf Story. So I thought, well, at least the horse has got somewhere to go. So I lost track of the horse. A couple of months passed and so on. I lost track of the horse. And I then looked at his racing form again, just going back to that form there. I saw he finished 10th of 12 in the lowest of lowest of lowest of lowest of lowest races, a selling race, where all the horses are up for sale. And sometimes the winner may get bought, or the second. But if you run 10 of 12 in a seller, nobody's going to want you. Oops, going the wrong way. So I thought I'd better ring Wolf Story, the trainer, because he's picked this horse up for free. He's tried to sell him, make some money on him very quickly, but nobody's bought him, so I better step in. But I didn't see this for a long, long time after he'd run that race. So, just before that, I asked him why he'd passed him on to Wolf. I asked Alan Swinbank why he'd passed him on to Wolf Story, and he says, owners don't want losers and neither do owners. So Wolf Story got him, and I rang Wolf Story, and I said, hey Wolf, you've got this horse Cap for Victory. I see you've put him in a selling race. There was no bids. I can give him a home. I can take him off you. And he come back to me and said, He's dead. I was quite astounded, actually. I shouldn't have been, but I was. He killed him because he'd come 10th in the cellar. Nobody was ever going to buy him. And he certainly wasn't going to hold on to a horse that wouldn't win races and make money for him. And that's the story of Cat for Victory. And there's a picture there on your seat of Cat for Victory. That's a picture I took. That was at his most vulnerable point in his life. And he looked at me. He's got his ears pricked and his eyes round. I just happened to take that photograph. And that is the story of Cat for Victory. Didn't quite end there because I felt quite hopeless at that, missing the opportunity to take him in. So I rang up the editor of Your Horse, which is in every newsagents, every supermarket, the best-selling horse magazine in the country. And we got his story in there as a consequence. Didn't bring him back, but it got the message out. It was the story to be told. And that was the life of Cat for Victory, just 8 years. I've got a horse in my care who was born, he was called Devil's Bite, who was born the same, within weeks of Cat for Victory. Devil's had his 24th birthday yesterday with me. Cat for Victory had just 8 years out on his own, desperate. Nobody to take him in. And that's the story. And I could tell you 1,000 stories about racehorses like that. The industry, despite all their PR, the reality is, this is the reality. We tell the truth, the industry tell the lies. But we're both fighting for the narrative. Thank you.
Dean, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, please. We've got a few minutes for questions now.
Oh.
I haven't been looking on we've got that. If anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll run the microphone to you.
Okay. What's the wastage stats in the UK?
69% of all horses who are bred will never see a race course. 1 in 58 horses who go jump racing will be dead by the end of the season, so within a year, 1 in 58 jump horses are dead. Around 1 in 200 horses who race both on the flat and over jumps are dead by the end of a season. Horses are still going for slaughter. Racing really isn't able to get to grips with what to do with the horses that they've produced after they've finished racing. So Fee and Jessamy and the rest of the team at Animal Aid done a lot of work on horses going for slaughter. We got it on a panorama program, in fact, where we exposed hundreds and thousands of horses going for slaughter. That's changed through our campaigning. That has changed. That number's reduced. It hasn't gone, but it's reduced significantly. We've got 598 went for slaughter in Britain last year. 532 of those were from Ireland. So we've got a smaller population coming from Britain, but we've still got horses in the racing system going for slaughter. I mean, the wider horse population runs into thousands being slaughtered, but Australia's a bigger racing. You've got America's biggest racing population, Australia second. Britain is small fry to Australia and America in terms of horses in training. No. Include breeding numbers with Ireland, but and slaughter figures, but not racing figures. Yeah, because Ireland's got its own jurisdiction for regulation separate from Britain. Yeah.
We'll go with a question on Hoover. So Tony, just raise your hand. Is raising awareness to gambling and gambling addiction part of activism against horse racing?
It is. We're concerned about people. Animal Aid's about people as well as animals. We're all in a community together that we have to share the world with. People have to share the world with animals and likewise. We've got so many domesticated animals, it will be difficult to disengage from that. And people are exploited through the gambling industry. My grandfather was an Aintree bookmaker, so And to be honest, I gambled as a younger guy. I was fully supportive of this industry until I got to know the ins and outs of it. And it's very easy to get carried away in gambling because you promise this utopia of lots of money. You gamble on a horse, you can win a lot of money. If the horse wins at 50 to 1, 50 times your amount. Leave it in a bank, you get 100 times less than that in a year. But in 2 minutes you can win a lot of money. And that's what grabs people. And people get sucked into that and they can lose a lot of money. And I can speak from experience of gambling. Yeah. Not that I lost any particularly a lot of money, but I am aware of the pitfalls of that.
Question from Law. Yeah, thank you for the question. What have been the reactions of the public and the industry following the publication of the story?
We get reaction all the time from the public. People who go racing maybe for the first time on hospitality days out, they'll come to us and say, "What happened to this horse? We saw him fall, or he looked very, very, he looked lame after the race." So we got almost every day. I'm getting members of the public saying, "Do you know about this horse? Can you tell me about that horse?" And if we run a story, then we get communication with the public on that as well. And it's quite overwhelming. When I first started out 25 years ago, there was very little interest, and now it's a full-on hard campaign with a lot of public support. And we saw that with the regulator, where we went to get an independent regulator. We've got 105,000 people to sign a signature about regulation. No. And that isn't exactly to the direct cruelty. It's not a picture of a dead horse, it's about regulation. And we got 100. So that shows that there's something out there with the population that they can relate to, and they want to change things. It's a slow process, it's incremental, but that's part of campaign. I've never known a campaign change overnight. It is slow, but get things on the TV like the Panorama program we worked on, and you find that you can make change. I took a picture of a horse being shot in the head on the front of the Daily, and it got on the front of the Daily Mirror. And within weeks, horses were no longer shot on race courses. They were injected instead. I don't think either's better because you're still killing the horse. But there's an example of how change can happen.
Dean, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, the next talk will be in here starting in about 6 minutes' time on open rescue in the US. Otherwise, Dean, big thank you to you and to Animal Aid for your working your talk.
Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.